What it is, y'all, it is approximately about 24 hours after the episode has aired. And I want to have a discussion about this because the internet, I no doubt, is just going to be eruptive with information on the basically the inclusion of Dragon Ball, well, the inclusion of Super Saiyan 4 into like the Dragon Ball canon, so to speak. Like, it really depends on how you kind of view this. Because, I mean, we all know that GT's kind of been written out at this point. Daima's like GT, but better. I mean, argue with me all you want in the comments, but it is significantly just an improved version of GT. I don't think anybody is going to argue that. Basically, what they've kind of done is they've taken all the best parts of GT, and I don't think anybody would argue that the Super Saiyan 4 form wasn't absolutely awesome, even back in the day, right? Like, this is a great form. Say what you will about the writing, say what you will about the story, say what you will about the pacing, any of the other characters, but we all know Super Saiyan 4 was genuinely an awesome form and was just one of the best things, if not the best thing, to come out of Dragon Ball GT. So, for it to be sort of canonized in the series, a lot of us pretty much knew exactly what was going to happen. They were going to basically come out with some way for this to be like a Demon Realm only thing. That is not confirmed yet, but I think we can kind of surmise that's where they're going with this, right? Like, it just seems like that's the thing. And we'll get to that here in a moment, but I just kind of want to gush about this for a minute because it's still fresh in my mind and it is still absolutely awesome. So, Super Saiyan 4 is now canonically part of the Super Saiyan, dare I call it a pantheon? It kind of sort of is. In fact, I love the fact that he's got the red hair, which kind of, if you really think about it, makes sense. Because if you remember back when Gogeta did hit the, when Goku and Vegeta fused to form Gogeta, Gogeta had the red hair. The form here has like the red hair all over its body. And in the original version in GT, they had to transform into like the Golden Ozaru, which essentially forms into this. So they did bypass that, and I'm kind of okay with that, and we'll get more into the similarities and the differences soon enough. But let's just take a moment to appreciate essentially what they're doing here, which is basically giving us the best version of everything that we've seen before and making it fit a little bit better into the current story. Because, you know, we already know that Z kind of goes into Super, not necessarily into GT, and all of this is directly from Toriyama's mind. Now, Toriyama did not initially design Dragon Ball, or Dragon Ball GT, or did not design Super Saiyan 4. However, there are notable times where he's actually drawn Super Saiyan 4 and has basically promoted the form itself, like, as you know, he's never done that for any other like fan form or anything like that. This is something that has just basically been more or less just appreciated across the board by everybody, including Toriyama, which is such a very, very rare and, quite frankly, astounding thing. So, let's go ahead and get into the similarities and differences, and I'm going to get into the physical side of it in a moment, but let's talk about how the transformation happened. Because if you remember it back to GT, and just to like very briefly break it down, Goku more or less had to grow his tail back. That happened in a weird way. Wasn't the greatest storytelling ever, and basically had to find a way to become more or less a Super Saiyan Ozaru, and then form into the Super Saiyan 4 form from there. And it was really weird, and they did it with like the waves from the moon or whatever. You know, I know they kind of gave it a weird name in the dub or whatever, but it's essentially that's how it all went down. It was very reliant on the moon and all that. And then after a while, that just stopped being a thing. Like, they could just do it at will or whatever. But the first transformation was pretty epic and was pretty interesting, but it was also always just kind of like weird. It felt like a bit of an ass pull sometimes, pun intended, because, I mean, remember, they had to like literally yank Goku's tail out, which was its own weird, strange thing. But in Dragon Ball Daima, basically what winds up happening is Neva just kind of, and we don't have the full explanation for how this went down, at least not as of me recording this. Essentially, Neva just kind of granted the power to Goku. Now, was this something that Neva... So, go back to Dragon Ball Z. Go back to all the way back to the original Frieza saga when they get to Namek and everyone's basically like looking for a quick power up so they can take down Frieza. And you have Guru who basically starts unlocking people's different abilities and different powers. And essentially just by, laying his hand on their head and more or less just kind of drawing out anything that's latent in them that they didn't already have, unlocked. Basically, finding a way to attain their ultimate potential, at least at that point in time. Obviously, we know it's not 100% of what they're capable of. They can still train, they can still attain more, case in point, Gohan, but it's what they're capable of at that point in time. It's their physical, complete, mental and physical limit, I guess you could say. So, what I'm gathering is that's more or less what Neva did, because I don't think that was like a fake moon or whatever, which we have seen forms of a fake moon. Vegeta did it back in the Namek saga. It's not necessarily out of the question. It's definitely a complete possibility. Now, the question arises: how did Neva know how to do this? And the answer we don't have yet. But I am going to go ahead and propose something a bit crazy here. We already know that the Nameks came from... we know the Nameks very specifically came from the Demon Realm and then went out to, the universe that we know, Universe 7 and all that, and basically inhabited that planet and became their thing. I want you to, once again, go back to the Saiyan saga, the very, very early part of the Saiyan saga, when we only just found out that Goku was an alien. And remember back when they start giving you the story and the background and all that, we find out that planet Sadala, which was eventually became planet Vegeta, was basically inhabited by, I think they were called the Ceruleans, that basically, for lack of a better way to put it, Granola's people. And they were more or less invaded by the Saiyans. The Saiyans had this ability to transform. And then they take over the planet, and then it becomes Planet Vegeta. But where did they come from? We don't get a lot of explanation about where they came from. We just know they showed up one day. Well, I want you to go back, and I want you to look at the Ozaru form for a minute and think about that. And what is the one thing that they have basically hyped above all else? And that is people in the Demon Realm have pointy ears, right? In the Ozaru forms... typically, they have pointy ears. It's a thing, isn't it? If I recollect, Ozarus definitely have pointy ears. So, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And we've seen things in the Demon Realm that essentially are just, astronomically sized, different size things. It's not out of the realm of possibility to think that the Saiyans' original form was just the Ozaru, and they had their own place in the Demon Realm. They even talk about how chaotic the Demon Realm was at one point, and different things were, basically blocked off. There's absolutely no reason to believe that the Nameks didn't just go, okay, well, we have to block off Demon Realm 3 because the Saiyans over there, the Ozaru, are just running rampant and destroying everything. All of this really does kind of track, and would easily explain why Neva knows how to do all of this, how he knows how to unlock this. Now, you could say, yes, maybe it's the power of the moon, maybe it's the latent energy, maybe it's any combination of the above. I am going to surmise that is more than likely where they're going with this. And I think a lot of people are probably on that same page, but, it's going to come as a matter of time before people start to realize that. Now, we'll see. I imagine in episode 19, we will probably get some kind of an answer, or maybe episode 20. We will get some kind of an answer. Where do I think this is going? Because obviously, we already know that, we know that Goma has already basically overcome the powers of Goku's Super Saiyan 4. And I even mentioned it, prior when he's fighting the Tamagami. And yes, we know Goku held his own in Super Saiyan 3, and then Goma found a way to power him down. Where do I think this is going? I'll answer that question tomorrow on a wholly separate video. In fact, I was having this discussion last night in the Discord with some friends, and I have a pretty good idea. I know what's going to happen, but make sure you guys tune in tomorrow. We'll discuss that. So this is kind of considered this like a to be continued type of thing. Now, we got to talk about the physical similarities and differences here. And I put both these pictures up to kind of show you what I'm talking about. So first things first, the attire is almost entirely the same, except Goku in Daima has red hair, whereas in GT he retains his black hair, which almost the hairstyles are very, very similar. The one in GT is a little more unkempt, dare I say. But they're very similar. The GT version is a little longer, a little more wild. It doesn't represent Goku's hairstyle as much. It's something very, very different. We already know that Vegeta from GT is very similar to his original hairstyle. Vegeta just doesn't change a whole heck of a lot. Vegeta's hair stays roughly the same. His hair in Daima, though, I think represents Goku a little bit more. It almost looks like a cross-section between his regular hairstyle and his Super Saiyan hairstyle. It's very similar. Obviously, it has the lower portions, like those little, I don't know what you'd call them, I don't know what you'd call those, but the little pigtails that kind of come down on the side of his head. It does have those, but they're a little more subtle. They just kind of come down behind his hair. It doesn't look as, this one looks a little less refined, and this one looks like something that's been a little more refined over time. Also, in GT, he was basically able to break the wish, the curse, whatever you want to call it, and was able to retain his adult form, whereas over here in Daima, that didn't happen. Basically, they mentioned over here that the reason it happened is because now he's more powerful than the dragons, and he's able to break the curse or break the wish or whatever. It's a weird explanation, but I'll be honest with you, I kind of like that. I do miss that over here a little bit. I really kind of wish he had been in his adult form. I would have very much liked that. The outfits, the pants are almost different, or almost similar, but the only difference being here is he's got this blue band around his belt, whereas he has the blue band around his wrists as well. Over here, he's got the blue band around his wrists, but he does not have it around the belt. The belt area remains the same, and he remains almost like the same. It's hard to see under here under the logo, but the boots are almost identical to his original outfit, whereas over here they more represent the regular GT outfit that he's kind of wearing, so which makes a lot of sense. Like over here, it's just everything we normally see, and over here it's everything we kind of saw in GT at the time. So that, once again, does make sense. Big difference. A lot of people have mentioned this. Some people like it, some people don't. I adore it, and I'll explain why I adore it. Look at his hands over here for a second in GT. And it's hard. So I'm trying to do it when it's mirrored on the screen. It's hard to kind of see over here, but the hands are regular-sized hands, and the wrists don't really have a lot of the hairless features that they do over here. So notice his hands over here. They're huge. They're massive hands. Very, dare I say, ape-like. And think about it, in the Ozaru form, they're very ape-like once again. And even the hands, if you go look at a picture of the Ozaru, the hands are enormous. They very much represent that ape-like, that very simian styling. I actually kind of like that. And the hands almost form this like glove type of like hairless shape. I don't know. I really, really like that over what we saw over in GT. I don't know. It seems a little more modern. I really do appreciate that. Now, I know that's going to be kind of a hot take, but say what you will. Some people like it, some people don't. But this looks more menacing, honestly. This reminds me a little bit more of the Ozaru form and looks a little bit more beastly. Also, the eyes over here, and I just noticed this, his eyes are red here, whereas in the original version, his eyes were kind of gold, almost. He does have the pupils, which you really can't tell here, but he does have the pupils. One thing that I will say, this does seem to be like the segue, and I mentioned it yesterday in the review, the segue between Super Saiyan 3 and the Super Saiyan God form, which he eventually attains in Dragon Ball Super and in the Battle of Gods movie. So it does feel like the halfway point between Super Saiyan 3 and God. So the God form always felt like its own separate thing. It wasn't really like an evolution of Super Saiyan. In fact, he was able to stack Super Saiyan on top of it. It never made a lot of sense that he was never able to go like Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3 with the God Key. It felt really, really weird that he didn't really do that. I know in Heroes they do and whatever, but I'm just saying specifically in the anime canon, shall we call it, even in the manga, he just goes, Super Saiyan, God, Super Saiyan, and then eventually gets the Ultra Instinct form. And I think we're eventually going to be able to stack Super Saiyan with the Ultra Instinct. So Ultra Instinct's more of a defensive technique or whatever, but we'll see how that plays out over time. My fear. Now we can surmise that this is, and this will kind of get to a point I want to make here at the end, but this, I can tell you right away, is a very Toriyama style, where this almost feels like a fan style. Just look at the way it's drawn out. I mean, I know this is art from Dokkan Battle, but the way it's drawn out, the way it's kind of designed, it feels less like Toriyama, more like an homage, right? We've all seen fan art. We know how that works. This feels very Toriyama. This very much just exudes his design. Now, I know he's kind of gone, and it's very unfortunate, and we do very much miss him. But we know from, notes and things like that Daima was kind of his like final pet project, and that there's very much the Toriyama touch in this product. So I'm sure at some point in time it's going to become, well known. Once again, the episode literally just aired as of recording this, so I'm willing to bet that more than likely what happened is he designed all this, he planned all this out before his unfortunate passing, and so I think over time that his touches and changes are going to basically be become more public knowledge. In fact, we only just before this episode found out that this basically was the producer's kind of homage to GT, which is why so many GT elements have been included up to and including their child forms. But in closing, I'll just say I absolutely love this. I can't think of a better way for this to be introduced into the canon, and I do kind of hope this is explained away as a demon realm only form that he can achieve here, only because it wouldn't make sense otherwise. It really wouldn't make sense in the Ultimate Canon if by Battle of Gods he could just do this outside the demon realm in, the normal, like, Earth realm or Universe 7 realm or whatever you want to call it. The overworld. It makes more sense as a demon realm only ability, and I would not be surprised if they mention that the Saiyans actually do originate from this area. But tune in tomorrow. We'll talk about where I think this is going and where I think this is ultimately going to lead. And I'm sure a lot of people, and it actually even answers, now that I thought about it, a question that I asked earlier in the week. So we'll talk about that a bit tomorrow. Like, share, make sure you guys comment and subscribe, and I'll be back with more Dragon Ball Daima and Dragon Ball in general coming up soon. Those of you that are asking already in the comments, my summons will be up soonish, because we know the new banners are coming out. I just don't know when. It might take an extra day or two, but we will have those up before long. So see you guys around for more Dokkan Battle on top of it all.